face an extremely important choice. Should they choose Governor Parson and his team of unelected GOP office holders who have spent the past 2 years failing Missouri's families? Or will Missourians support a slate of Democratic leaders with fresh, new ideas and the tenacity to make tough decisions we need to keep Missouri families safe? Over the past 5 months, Governor Parson and his team have failed our entire state with their complete mismanagement of Missouri's response to COVID-19. I believe Missourians deserve better. Missouri voters showed us that they are focused on the health of their families and neighbors when they approved Medicaid expansion on Tuesday. However, I believe that Governor Parson cannot be trusted to expand Medicaid. So we need to elect Auditor Nicole Galloway to the governor's office to enact the will of the people. I also feel that if Governor Parson returns to office next year, that he will seek to overturn the voters on this issue. The governor has repeatedly tried to overturn the will of the voters on issues such as Clean Missouri, ending right to work, and eliminating puppy mills. This election is not just about replacing an unelected administration that is failing Missouri families. It's about offering voters new and better leadership. Auditor Galloway has taken on special interest in Jefferson City by uncovering more than $350 million in wasted or stolen taxpayer money, and by bringing 60 criminal counts against corrupt public officials. Auditor Galloway has stood up for what's right for Missouri working families, and that's exactly what she'll do as governor. She'll expand access to health care, improve our public schools, and build on an economic recovery. She's a leader with the integrity and the urgency to address the challenges our state faces, and to ensure we come out of this crisis stronger than we were before. I'm excited to be part of this statewide team. I'm smiling beneath this mask. My #1 goal as the next Missouri State Treasurer is to get Missouri's economy back on track. We cannot stand by any longer and watch small businesses close, unemployment rise, and Missourians die due to a lack of science-based healthcare information and public safety measures, just as these masks that we are all wearing here today. Our team can and will make the tough decisions needed to protect our families. Our nominee for Missouri State's Secretary of State is no stranger to making hard decisions. I'd like to now take this moment to introduce you to another vital member of our team, Yinka Falati. Yinka?
Thank you. Good morning. I hope everyone is doing well, all things considered. My name is Yinka Falati. I am honored to be the Democratic nominee for Missouri Secretary of State. As a graduate of the United States Military Academy at West Point and a 6-year veteran of the active duty U.S. Army who served 2 tours overseas in Kuwait, including a tour in response to September 11, I know what good leadership is, and I know what good leadership does. That is not what we've seen from Jefferson City over the last 3+ years, especially not over the last several months. This message is for all Missourians who find themselves stressed and anxious during the most global and lethal health pandemic the world has seen in 100 years. Missourians who find themselves out of work and running out of unemployment. The over 55,000 Missourians who have contracted COVID or have a loved one who has. Or worse yet, those of our fellow over 1,300 Missourians who have succumbed to this terrible virus. This is for the Missourians who are anxious about the safest and best way to educate their children this fall. This is for Missourians who are fed up with fumbling and failing leadership from Jefferson City. For Missourians who see a leadership slate in Jefferson City that doesn't care about their right to vote, that doesn't care about their health, that doesn't care about their children, that doesn't care about public education, that doesn't care about the things they ought to be focusing on during a global pandemic. Missourians see a leadership slate that's focused on brass knuckles instead of being focused on the brass tacks. Missourians see a Secretary of State who is bumbling his way through one of the most important leadership posts in our state. He's not even mailing it in anymore. Just this Monday, the world heard Jay Ashcroft suggest that fathers should risk contracting COVID-19 or even dying so that their children could go to school for a semester or two. Unbelievable to hear those words come from someone who's supposed to be a statewide leader. Jay Ashcroft, hear Missourians well. There is no child in this state who thinks it's an even trade to lose a parent to COVID-19 for a semester or two of school. Not a one. Perhaps you should visit an orphanage and talk to children who have actually lost a parent. Ask them what they wouldn't give to have their parent back. Jay Ashcroft's statement reminds of the ancient story about Nero fiddling and diddling in Rome. You know how that story ends. We will not let Missourians continue to suffer by failed leaders, not if we can help it come November. This Tuesday, Missourians put down a deposit on the change they want to see come November. Missourians joined the wisdom of our sister states and became the 38th state to expand Medicaid. Despite the disinformation attempts by those who were supposed to be leading us, the people of Missouri refused to have the wool pulled over their eyes and saw Medicaid expansion for the tremendous opportunity it is to ensure a healthier and thereby more prosperous Missouri by leveraging tax dollars that we already pay the federal government. We will now be able to cover nearly 250,000 more of our fellow Missourians with affordable health care. And as COVID-19 has very much exposed, none of us are healthy until all of us are healthy. We are all in this together. For Missourians all over our state, November cannot come fast enough. All of our collective effort must now be squarely focused on bringing about the change through the ballot box in November that we want to see, whether you are in the Boot Hill or in Joplin or St. Louis or Kansas City or Kirksville or St. Joseph, Springfield, Columbia, or anywhere within the boundaries of this state. Your fellow Missourians need you to engage now. Stay engaged in the process and come out to vote this November and send a strong signal to Jay Ashcroft and other failing leaders in Jefferson City, including Governor Parson, that your life and your vote matters, and you won't stand for them fooling with either. By your vote this November, you can assure your access to the ballot is never silenced, whether through voting or through the ballot initiative. By your vote this November, you can assure that all eligible Missourians will have multiple ways to cast their vote and their voice. By your vote in November, you can ensure we preserve democracy in Missouri for all. Thank you for your time. I'm energized to have secured the Democratic nomination for Missouri Secretary of State. I look forward to working together with my fellow Democratic nominees for statewide office to usher in a wave of change in November. Thank you so much. And now I introduce the next governor of the great state of Missouri, Auditor Nicole Galloway.
Thank you, Yinka. Thank you, Vicki, for being here. I really do appreciate it. And thank you all for joining us here this morning. As you know, I am Missouri State Auditor Nicole Galloway. And when I launched this campaign for governor nearly a year ago, I never could have imagined where we would be today. But I knew then that Missouri's working families needed change. I'm even more certain of it now. Nearly 1,300 of our friends and neighbors have lost their lives to this virus since March. More than 200,000 of our friends and neighbors are out of work. Over 100,000 Missourians have lost their health care coverage since this crisis has begun. Our cases, our positivity rate, hospitalizations, they're all going in the wrong direction. No politician caused or created the coronavirus pandemic, but years of failed policies leading up to it have made it so much worse than it needed to be. The most important thing the next governor will have to do is contain the spread of the virus and rebuild Missouri's economy. The question is, will we take the steps needed to defeat the virus and rebuild in a way that helps working people get back on their feet? Or will we continue to ignore the science, distract, and rebuild only for well-connected special interests? I'm running for governor to put Jefferson City back on the side of working families and act with urgency to protect our fellow Missourians. In times of crisis, unrest, uneasiness, public officials must step up, take control, and act. Never before has it been so clear that the decisions our governor makes has such a dramatic impact on our daily lives, especially in times of crisis. When public health officials urged Missourians to wear a mask, Governor Parson instead stood up for those who wanted to defy public health and local government guidance. He went to campaign rallies and revved up his supporters by saying he wouldn't issue a mask rule for Missouri. He waited to order the schools to close until all of them already had. Then he spent the next 3 months doing nothing to prepare for them to reopen. When it became clear this spring that the governor needed to issue a statewide order to flatten the curve, Governor Parson resisted. He was slow to act. Then in May, he penned an op-ed in the Washington Post claiming credit for not issuing strong guidance, declaring mission accomplished. In May. Look, as a mom, I am eager for my boys to get back to in-person learning. It is vital for them. It's vital for our economy so parents can get back to work. We had a limited window of opportunity to keep district plans reopening and on track, but it all depended on where we were with the virus. Instead, Governor Parson went on the radio in July and said it didn't matter how bad COVID was in our state, that kids are going to get COVID when they go back to school, but they'll just go home and they'll just get over it. For our kids, for our families, for our teachers and school staff, Governor Parson's mind, we're all just going to have to get over his failure to lead. What Governor Parson doesn't seem to understand is that this economic crisis is caused by a public health emergency. The economic crisis cannot be solved. Schools cannot fully reopen for in-person learning until the spread of the virus is contained. He should have been stronger on masks, stronger on testing, stronger on contact tracing, stronger on PPE. He should have done more in partnership with our school districts this summer to prepare to reopen this fall. We need a strategy at the statewide level. Our teachers deserve it, our kids deserve it, working families need it. This past spring, when so many Missourians did what they were supposed to do to flatten the curve, they gave up income, time with family, graduations, celebrations. Today, it's hard to understand what we have to show for it. Missourians will do what is asked of them. We'll do what it takes to get through this together. We want clarity and leadership. We need a call to action. We need some urgency. Governor Parson had his chance. He failed. It is time for a change. Look no further than his failure to lead on the voters' #1 issue, health care. Health care is going to be one of the most important ways we dig our way out of this crisis. Missourians had to do what politicians wouldn't and expand Medicaid. This will bring billions to the state annually, create jobs in places that desperately need them, and save our rural hospitals. We can expand health care without raising taxes or cutting other programs. As governor, that's exactly what I'll do. Governor Parson won't. I believe that Governor Parson will undermine our vote in favor of Medicaid expansion. History can be our guide. On Clean Missouri, on Right to Work, Governor Parson thinks he knows better than the voters. He campaigned against Medicaid expansion. He moved it to the August ballot to try to defeat it. He said he raised taxes and cut other programs if we voted for it. I take him at his word. The future of Medicaid expansion in Missouri depends on who is in the governor's office next year when it comes time to implement it. Governor Parson cannot be trusted with the health care needs of Missouri's working families. Governor Parson is part of the old way, the entrenched system. The corruption of our politics and our government is how Governor Parson got to where he is. The gifts from lobbyists, the favors for friends, the campaign contributions for regulated industries. He's just part of the swamp that makes folks feel like the system is rigged to work for insiders and not for them, especially when the cost of health care and everything else just keeps going up. There is nothing more important than the health and well-being of the people of this state. Governor Parson is offering nothing to address it. In fact, on his watch, health care costs have become more expensive, and far too many working Missourians have lost their health care coverage. Governor Parson has no plan. He has no vision. I don't know that he cares. I do. As governor, working people will be at the center of everything I do, with working people at the table. We need a reset on our coronavirus strategy. I'll convene public health experts, business leaders, workers, parents. We need universal testing. Our healthcare providers and first responders need the supplies and equipment to do their work safely and a stockpile in reserve. Our school districts need all of that too, along with clear guidance and data on how they can initiate a reopening plan that keeps kids and staff safe, but also keeps the schools open. Those facing hardship without work still need a hand. This isn't over, so the need for a safety net remains. Healthcare, recovery, rebuilding, these are at the heart of my case for change. We can't just go back to where we were on the eve of this crisis, because where we were wasn't good enough for too many people. We will get through this together. Hope is on the horizon, but we can't wait anymore. The time is now. The urgency has never been so clear. And with that, I'll be happy to take any questions that you all might have.
Auditor Galloway, there was a lot covered there, but I'm just curious as to what you think, if there's one issue that you feel Governor Parson has failed, if you will, the most on, that you would address first. Is it the COVID crisis? Is it healthcare? Is it a combination? What's your thought there?
You know, Governor Parson has failed in his test of leadership over the last 2 years, and we don't have to look any further than the coronavirus. I think the coronavirus, our containment of it, our defeat of it, and our economic recovery from the coronavirus will be the defining issue of our time. And the cracks that have existed in Jefferson City for a long time are widening, and that's because of the failed policies and leadership out of Jefferson City. And so I am offering a new way. I care if people have health care. I will implement Medicaid expansion. I will work to contain the spread of the virus so we can get our economy up and running. There seems to be a disconnect that our economic recovery is independent of the virus. That couldn't be further from the truth. We will never rebound economically until we contain the spread of COVID-19.
Recent history makes Missouri a tough place for a Democrat. Do you feel with the vote to expand Medicaid as well as the defeat of right to work that perhaps things may be shifting a little bit with Governor Parson apparently coming down on the wrong side of both those votes?
Governor Parson is on the wrong side of the issues that Missourians care about. I mean, he campaigned against Medicaid expansion. He told falsehoods about Medicaid expansion and supported the campaign that had misleading and race-baiting tactics. I cannot believe that he campaigned against Medicaid expansion in the midst of a pandemic. Who is sitting in the governor's office next year when it comes time to implement Medicaid expansion will absolutely matter. We've totally erased Governor Parson's lead in the polls. We are completely tied now, so he has a right to be nervous.
And the other than the COVID crisis, one of the other vital aspects of living in St. Louis that we have to deal with is violence and crime. Later today at a press conference, they will announce the Operation Legend, where federal forces may be brought into St. Louis. Can we get your reaction to that, please?
Absolutely. You know, there's no denying that violent crime is a significant issue in St. Louis, in Kansas City, in Columbia, in Springfield. That is well known, and it's been that way for a long time, and it's gotten worse under Governor Parson's watch. Now, in an election year, he is all of a sudden trying to address violent crime when people were begging him to address it last year, and he said he had to stay in his lane and it wasn't his responsibility. As governor, I would welcome assistance from the federal government in solving open homicides, but I don't think that federal troops should be patrolling our streets or take a beat as if a cop would. The reality is, until we address the availability of guns on our streets, the availability of weapons to commit violent crime, we will not solve this crisis.
If you could have that voice at that special session going on right now in Jefferson City, what would you tell those legislators they need to do to have an impact on St. Louis and Kansas City in particular?
We need to address the availability of guns. We have to. Look, Governor Parson has been in Jefferson City for decades, and we have recycled the same policies over and over and over again, and they have not addressed violent crime. He voted to make guns more available, and law enforcement begged the legislature not to override Governor Nixon's veto years ago. But Governor Parson went ahead and overrode that veto anyway. And so in this special session, there are some bipartisan things that certainly will pass, but it doesn't get to the heart of the problem. It doesn't get to why violent crime exists. That's just not even being addressed or discussed in Jefferson City in this special session.
We've had districts, multiple school districts here in the St. Louis area, decide to go all virtual for the beginning of school because of COVID. A couple are trying to hold out for some combinations. Is there a position that you hold in that area? Do you think schools should go all virtual? Do you think there's a difference depending on where you are in the state? What's your thought on starting school in the midst of the pandemic?
Look, school districts across our state and many parts of our state are deciding on their own to delay, to go virtual, because Governor Parson has failed to contain the spread of the virus. I would have been working with local school districts and local public health officials to design reopening plans in June and July, like issuing a mask order, right, to contain the spread of the virus. If we are at high positivity rates, if there's community spread of the coronavirus, it's going to be difficult to get back to normal, right? It's going to be difficult to open our economy, which includes opening our schools. Governor Parson should have been doing that in the month of July, so we could open schools in August. But instead, he went to campaign rallies and encouraged people not to wear masks and to defy local government orders on wearing masks. You know, Governor Parson has a disconnect. He does not realize that schools' openings rely on containment of the virus.
Any others?
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.